Hello, everybody. David Schuster here. Legal experts are now blasting Trump Attorney General Pam Bondi and say she has triggered a constitutional crisis.
At the top of the Justice Department.
She's tearing up the Constitution.
Bondi's Justice Department refused to comply with federal judge Jeb Boasberg, who asked for specific information about Trump administration deportation flights.
You know, this one federal judge, again, thinks he can control foreign policy for the entire country, and he cannot.
The latest defiance by Bondi's Justice Department came days after the administration ignored the judge's order to stop the flights.
These are foreign terrorists. The president has identified them and designated them as such, and we will continue to follow the Alien Enemies Act.
But that act only applies to people who come from countries at war with the United States. Venezuela is not at war with the United States. Also, some of the Venezuelans deported reportedly have no connections to gangs, crime, or terrorism.
Pam Bondi's comments, Anna, were of a piece with what we've seen in the first 2 months of the Trump administration, an assault on the Constitution.
Question should be, why is a judge trying to protect terrorists who have invaded our country?
In multiple appearances on Fox News, Attorney General Bondi has claimed the judges issuing injunctions to stop or freeze Trump administration actions are Democrats, and that this is all part of an orchestrated effort by Democrats in the judiciary to thwart Donald Trump.
These activist judges are trying to control our entire federal government.
But legal experts, including Norm Eisen, point out that the rulings against the Trump administration are coming at the same clip from judges appointed by Democrats and judges appointed by Republicans.
The hundreds of cases, over 100 cases that have gone to judges. And you know what? Democratic appointed judges, about over 80% of the time have ruled against Trump. Yes, it's unconstitutional. It's illegal. Republican appointed judges also over 80% of the time.
Another Republican judge ripping the Trump administration is this retired one on Newsmax.
Senior judicial analyst Judge Adrian Npalitano. Hope you're doing well this morning.
Yes, on the conservative channel Newsmax, Npalitano said he agreed with the judge who ruled that the DOJ firing government workers at USAID is unconstitutional.
In this case, DOJ said they did the firing. And since Elon Musk is not nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, he doesn't have the authority to fire.
Right.
If DOJ had said, we're just recommending, we're just gathering facts and recommending to the president he's doing the firing, of course the president could fire the USAID.
But in court, DOJ has admitted that it carried out the USAID firings, even though Congress never voted for DOJ.
It is just a recommending entity. It doesn't have the authority to cut budgets or fire people because it wasn't established by the Congress and Elon Musk wasn't confirmed by the Senate. So it's the legal equivalent of advisors to the president in the White House who can give him all the advice he wants, but they can't pull the levers of power.
As Npalitano and others have noted, many of the rulings against the Trump administration have involved issues of due process. The Constitution requires Congress to vote on shutting down government agencies or in stopping money from being spent that Congress already voted to allocate. In the Venezuelan migrant deportation case, the due process issue involves the fact that the deportees were not given a hearing or an opportunity to defend themselves. Plus, the judge ruled that the 1789 law cited by the Trump administration does not apply. President Trump publicly called for Judge Boasberg's impeachment. That prompted a response from Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts.
How unusual is it for someone in the Supreme Court to just send out a statement saying that, no, this is not an impeachable offense? We shouldn't be talking about impeaching judges.
I've never heard of it happening before.
And there's a statement right there.
Correct.
Roberts wrote, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose.
The statement is an accurate statement of the law. The last time a judge was impeached for a decision the judge made, not for any crime committed, was 1804, and he was acquitted in the Senate. That's Justice Samuel Chase. Just a historical footnote. Chief Justice Roberts is correct on the law. judges can only be impeached on the same basis as a presidential impeachment. Treason, bribery, other high crimes, and misdemeanor. Not a decision on the law with which you disagree.
Even in the wake of that statement from Chief Justice Roberts, President Trump has continued to verbally attack the federal judges ruling against his administration. He posted on Truth Social, unlawful nationwide injunctions by radical left judges could very well lead to the destruction of our country. These people are lunatics who do not care even a little bit about the repercussions from their very dangerous and incorrect decisions and rulings.
He's playing a very risky game because judges don't like attacks on other judges, but he did not repeat the impeachment point. And I think that that is the key point there. I think he is trying to show he is still issuing a pressure campaign. He always does. We are going to see him continue to do that. But his calls for Congress to impeach judges, which is very hard to make happen, has upset some of his own staff, and it has upset leaders in the Senate and in the House, Republican leaders in the Senate and the House. So I think that this is him saying, fine, I hear you, at least for now.
But even if President Trump is no longer calling for a judge's impeachment, his pressure campaign is still reportedly irritating members of the U.S. Supreme Court, including Chief Justice Roberts. And that could be a problem for Trump when the Doge cases or the deportation fight eventually reach the high court on appeal.
The words that Trump and even officials like the Attorney General have been using about the Judge James Boasberg is just not going to sit very well with, for example, Chief Justice John Roberts and perhaps even with other justices of the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett has already shown that she's going to attack somewhat independently of the Trump administration. Those two votes right there could be very, very important, not only for these attacks, but for other Trump policies that will be coming to the court in rapid fire succession over the course of the next few months. And so a lot of people that I talk to, judges, for example, say they think this is ultimately counterproductive. It's setting up sort of mood music and an atmosphere that is not going to be helpful for Trump in terms of his agenda at the Supreme Court or in finding the 5 votes that he needs to make sure that his policies go forward.
In the meantime, Attorney General Pam Bondi is not backing down from her wild assertions and claims about Judge Boasberg.
You have one unelected federal judge trying to control foreign policies, trying to control the Alien Enemies Act, which they have no business presiding over.
But again, that's up for the courts to decide. Pam Bondi is already under fire from lawmakers in both parties after pledging to release Jeffrey Epstein files and then producing documents that were highly redacted or already in the public domain. A big nothing burger. And a few months ago, Bondi's nomination as Attorney General produced a brutal backlash in her home state. Headline, in Pam Bondi, Trump found another ridiculous Florida toady to do his bidding. And that bidding, which includes defying a federal judge, continues. And it's sparking a growing consensus that a constitutional crisis has arrived. Here's Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski.
When the court's orders are defied, that weakens our courts. When the people no longer believe that the system of justice is there for them, what do we have in this country?
We have an America under Trump, and it is ugly. By the way, the controversies are piling up for Donald Trump's White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. Karoline Leavitt brutally fact-checked on judge who blocked Trump.
This judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats, and he has consistently shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
You're right where I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
To the notion of too many injunctions against Donald Trump, that's probably because he's the one president who's acted the most outside the bounds of his executive authority. The death of critical thinking is real. This White House is a perfect example of it. And I think this is also when there's this debate, which surprises me sometimes, whether or not we're in a constitutional crisis. Yes, we are. We've been in a constitutional crisis since we elected an insurrectionist and surrounded him with the trappings of the departments of the United States government, from the Department of Justice to the Department of Commerce to the Department of Treasury, you name it. Those trappings have normalized this behavior in an environment where it shouldn't be normalized.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Debbie, who wrote, "If they stopped her every time she lied, she would never get to speak." I hear you. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi sparking a constitutional crisis and getting slammed. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.